So I have made the ultimate casual build, and it's so casual, we're going to show it on Lincoln Memorial. Right, the idea behind this build and why I wanted to make it was Catharsis. It is a very powerful mask, but I very rarely use it simply just because where I mostly play DPS builds, by the time Catharsis actually is able to proc and bolster your damage in the way in which Catharsis does, i.e. taking damage gives you 1 stack, 1 stack will also increase your all weapon damage by 1%. I've tested this, it is all weapon damage. I know a few people that have tried saying it's total weapon damage. Well, I tried calculating it with total weapon damage, it's not even close. Though if I calculate it as all weapon damage, such as just a red core, essentially Catharsis giving you 2 of them for a total of 30% weapon damage, I'm able to get exact damage numbers. So it is all weapon damage, it is essentially just red cores. This does mean that we're essentially able to get 2 red cores out of 1 piece, provided we are taking damage. This is incredibly powerful, don't get me wrong. The issue is that when you're running an all red build, you will typically die quite easily before you actually hit the maximum stack or are able to maintain the damage bonus from Catharsis. So the idea of this build was to have a red build but also be able to maximize the effectiveness of Catharsis with an all red build, being able to get somewhat decent damage out. And we actually utilize a rather interesting piece for this, and that is the named R&K holster, the Forge. Now some of you are probably just reeled back in your seat here, hear me out. While at skill tier 0, the Forge is actually more powerful than going up a skill tier. While at skill tier 1, the Forge is also still more powerful than going up a skill tier. So the Forge will beat out skill tier 1, and skill tier 1 with the Forge will beat out skill tier 2. It's only really after skill tier 2 does the math behind the Forge get wafty. Although skill tier 2 with the Forge will obviously be more health, but we're not just looking at the health, we're looking at the uptime of the shield. So that's the active regen as well as the holstered regen. Now, because Catharsis offers us 20% incoming repairs and the 1 set brand bonus from Richter and Kaiser is also 20% incoming repairs, we're able to get a seriously good amount of healing on ourselves by use of the healing chem. I'm not too sure, I have tried testing whether Catharsis is affected by incoming repairs, but Catharsis does state that it will only heal X percentage of armor over a duration. It quite literally says the cloud will restore 5% of max armor for 10 seconds to all allies within the cloud. This is the only time I wish I could hack the game, just so that I could transfer my health and armor to active numerical values, just to see if each healing tick with Catharsis is just giving me that 5%, or whether I'm getting 5% times 1.4. This will admittedly only take me to 9.2, which, like I said, I'm pretty sure isn't actually happening, because if it's 5% per tick over 10 seconds, 5% times 10 is 50. When Catharsis does proc, I have noted that I only tend to go to roughly half armor, whereas if Catharsis was affected by incoming repairs, I would nearly be getting full armor from 1 proc of Catharsis when it drops that little magical healing cloud, which I'm not. So in conjunction with Catharsis and also utilizing the repair chem, I am essentially able to go from 0 armor to full armor very damn quick. Along with adding the 10% armor on kill from Gunner, we are actually insanely survivable, and utilizing the shield along with the amount of healing that we get, we are able to regularly and consistently proc Catharsis on essentially what is a full red build. Admittedly, we do get the 1 blue from Catharsis, but Catharsis is also offering us some red in the form of its talent. In short, we have essentially optimized the uses of Catharsis and the Forge, allowing them to work almost in a symbiosis. The 50% increased health from Forge on our shield, along with the 1 blue core from Catharsis, allows us to get just over a skill tier 2 shield by only being at 1 skill tier, We're also able to optimize our amount of healing through the Catharsis by having a more tanky shield, as well as the incoming repairs from both Catharsis as well as the Forge through our healing apparatus, whatever it is you would decide, whether that be the drone, the chem, or perhaps even the hive, depending on how you wanted to play. Using our healing mechanic along with our shield with Catharsis, as well as whatever it is we are utilizing as a heal with our 40% incoming repairs, we are amazingly pretty damn tanky while offering still some pretty decent DPS. In terms of weapon, I would suggest going for something a bit more on the higher Unga Bunga DPS side, such as a FAMAS F2000 down to about Police M4. I wouldn't really drop below Police M4. In terms of talent on the weapon, I am using Killer just because I can't be arsed farming for a better FAMAS. Optimally, I would suggest either Optimist or Strained. Killer does work okay, but at the times where Killer is not active, I really do notice the difference in damage. From here, the rest of the build is basically a poster child for what my channel overall aims to achieve. I've got the mechanic, what I wanted. I wanted Catharsis and I wanted Forge. I also want it to be a DPS build. What can I now add in to make this a semi-optimal DPS build that allows me to utilize the Catharsis as well as the Forge? Well, because I go over individual pieces and not mostly overall builds, we know that for a build such as an AR DPS build, Contractors and Foxes are going to be best in slot, unless of course we are lacking in the critical hit chance or the critical hit damage area. So Coyotes is out because we've already got Catharsis in, which is an exotic, so we can't really look at any more exotics. From here, we need to bolster our critical hit chance. Easiest and best way to do that is going to be a Seska piece. Cool, we've got Seska. With Seska and running any other pieces, are we able to hit the cap of 60% crit chance? Yes, we are. So we have Contractors and Foxes in, which just leaves one remaining piece. We're running an AR, so we potentially could run Fenris, but because we're at expertise 15, Fenris is entirely pointless, which means we can now run Grupo. The overall build is Catharsis, Grupo chest, Forge holster, Contractor's gloves, Fox's prayer knees, and a Cheska backpack. The overall performance of this is actually pretty damn awesome. All we've essentially done is taken a mechanic that we wanted. I wanted the interaction between the Forge and the Catharsis, and from there I've utilised my in-game knowledge, or knowledge that I potentially could impart onto you, to make a build slightly more optimal in facing down the overall content of the game. The heal for this is substantial enough that we're able to mostly heal, or at least keep up with, named elites with a flamethrower. The build works. Knowledge. All we're going to do now is just check damage numbers. I just need to reset Catharsis by taking it off and putting it back on again, which is an interesting way to do this. I do have Obliterate on, which is going to cause some fluctuations in the damage, but on body crit with Obliterate at max, which it isn't at the moment, so starting damage is like 370. At top end, it does end up being about 514. Head crits start at about 520, but at full stack with Obliterate, we do get to about 660. This is without anything from Catharsis. Catharsis is only going to allow us to go up from here. So this is sort of like our baseline level. So if we now just self-damage ourselves, which will get Catharsis to at least a decent-ish amount, we're going to try and proc it at full without actually going over. So we're probably about 28 stacks here. So we're now starting at about 400, which is already a lot higher than what we were at. Just going to try and get to max Obliterate. So we're now at 575 rather than 514, and head crits are going into 735. So Catharsis does allow us to actually get some pretty hefty damage numbers out. Obviously, it's just going to fluctuate because 1, Obliterate, 2, the amount of damage that we take is going to be represented in the amount of damage we do. This does mean that we kind of have to play pretty damn aggressively, but luckily for us, the healing on this build is pretty damn wondrous. This is just Catharsis and it's getting us to just about halfway, and if we just pop 1 chem on the floor, that will completely top us off. The incoming repairs from this build does actually make a difference and can make you pretty damn survivable. Overall, like I said, this is the build. I am running a FAMAS. It is expertise 15. It is killer. I would prefer strained or optimist on a build like this, but it is entirely your choice. I am running an M1A just in case for a long range option. Seska backpack with vigilance, Grupo chest with obliterate, crit chance, crit damage everywhere, contractors, foxes, and of course we have a Catharsis mask with a crit chance mod in, and then we have a rather interesting forge which I have rolled to weapon damage. This will need to either come with crit chance or crit damage, but the overall symbiosis between these two pieces is actually pretty damn phenomenal. And the overall effect is actually a pretty damn casual build. You do good damage, you're able to survive pretty much all forms of content up to heroic. I did try this on legendary, it did okay, but the healing wasn't enough to make up for the amount of damage taken on legendary. Don't recommend. Now onto the shield. I do have it in the top left, as you can see, skill tier 1 plus forge. It gives me 2,586,000 health. And then the active regen is 49,492, and then the holstered regen is 72,998. If I now put this to skill tier 2, in terms of health, I drop down to 2.2 million, although I do get a little bit more active regen and holstered regen, which, considering we're always going to be taking damage, it's not worth really reading too much into it. We've taken roughly about a 4,000 health drop in each, minus the actual overall health, in which case we have actually lost 318,539, meaning the forge and skill tier 1 is more powerful than skill tier 2 shield. Have fun, good luck, don't die, it's bad for the health.